Yo, what's up? This is Jay Dennis, and I'm back with another ranking. This one's going to be audio, so it's going to be a slideshow. But if you listen, you'll hear the ranking. And I'm going to try to not make this one like fucking 35 minutes, like with my Trivium one. Today I'm doing EMMURE, with Hindsight, their latest album that just came out in late June, a couple weeks ago. With Hindsight recently released, I can make a symmetrical image of 8 albums, their discography, and go back as far as 2007 and rank these things. And as per usual, upon reflection, I realize I'm a little generous when I rank things or rate things, video games, music, movies, whatever. I'm kind of generous, but I've gotten a little bit more critical over the years, more objective. But the rating system I'm going to use is just like in school. Like, if you got a 75, that's a C. If you got an 83, that's a B. If you got a 90, that's an A. But yeah, I'm not going to be doing it just rounding down by 0.5 or to the nearest zero anymore. I'm also going to do like a 7.7 or something like that. So anyway, without further ado, 8 albums from EMMURE, a band that I did not think that I was going to be ranking. But it turns out throughout their 8 albums, there actually is some diversity and a bit of an evolution. You can definitely say that they're a bit of a guilty pleasure, but with regards to some of my influences, EMMURE definitely is a modern day influence for me. And Frankie Palmieri is apparently a sweetheart of a guy. And even if there's been some controversy in the past, nobody is perfect and nobody is immune from things. And if that's what gave us these 8 albums, then I'm perfectly fine with that, because again, there is some sentimental meaning for these albums, and the 180 that I've done on some of them made me really want to do a rating. So 2 minutes in, let's go ahead and do this. At number 8, and by the way, this ranking surprised me. It surprised myself as much as it might surprise some people. So let me know what your thoughts are, and what your ranking is, and why maybe you'd rank certain albums higher or lower. All right, number 8, Eternal Enemies. Didn't think I was going to be putting this one at the bottom, but here we are. This album came out in 2014. It's album number 6. This is a sentimental album for me. I listened to it while it was new. I bought it on iTunes. It's 15 tracks, 45 minutes, so I think it's their longest album. The reason why it's at the bottom, though, is the singles are decent at best. Nemesis, E, A Gift, A Curse, which is probably the best single, and then Like La Moda. These singles just don't really do it for me with, relative to the other albums and their singles that they put out to represent the album. E was supposed to be like this nookie looking, everybody said it reminded them of Limp Bizkit because probably, the scenery of the music video looked a certain way, but EMMURE definitely has nu metal elements, but I just got a little, okay, these guys aren't a modern day Limp Bizkit, like calm down. But much like with most albums that I rank, or most bands that I rank, I don't hate any of the albums. The top tracks on this album are some of my favorite EMMURE songs. NIA, News in Arizona, that's one of my favorite EMMURE songs, probably like in the top 10. Same thing with Grave Markings. Girls Don't Like Boys, They Like 40s or something. That's a fun song. And then We Were Just Kids, great closing track. Most people that even didn't like EMMURE look like they liked the song We Were Just Kids. The reason why this album falls to the bottom, though, is because of the filler tracks, the weak tracks. Most Hated, Hitomi Shinobi, and New Age Rambler. If those songs resonate with you, I'm sorry, those songs didn't do it for me. And then this is kind of what really helps me rate albums a certain way. It's the flow. This is the most inconsistent album. It's got big peaks, which means the top tracks are pretty damn good, but the valleys are deep. The filler tracks were just way too weak for me. And ultimately it opens and it closes on a strong note, but it's just the flow with everything in the middle. It's just too off. So I gave this album a 7.5 out of 10. That's a mid C. No EMMURE albums are failing to me, so 7.5 is what I give EMMURE's worst album in my opinion. Number 7, we have Speaker of the Dead, 2011. I did not think that this album would be this low either, but again, here we are. This is actually the album that got me into EMMURE. Back in 2011, I bought it for $5 on iTunes because it was on sale, and I was like, fuck it, that's a lot of music. Except not really. It's 15 tracks, it's 38 minutes, so I guess that's a decent amount of content. At least for EMMURE's sake, that is a longer album. But yeah, this is the album that got me into them, but upon re-listening to it from start to finish, much like Eternal Enemies, the flow is weak. But let's get to the singles. Solar Flare Homicide, what a fucking great song title. Overrated single, though. I am not a fan of the little wub effects that are like in the breakdown, and it's too repetitive. I don't think it's a good single, but I get why some people will like it. And then the other single, I believe, off this album is called Drug Dealer Friend, which is kind of like a basic EMMURE song, but at least for me, yeah, you know what daddy... Hey! Yeah, you know what daddy likes. Like, I don't know. That song is just kind of fun to listen to. So this album definitely missed the mark on singles. But the top tracks, much like with Eternal Enemies, are solid. Like, they're the songs that really got me into EMMURE. Area 64 through 66, Demons with Ryu, Bohemian Groove, Last Words to Rose, Voice from Below, and Drug Dealer Friend. Those are all good songs. But then the filler tracks, Cries of Credo, For Poison, 3-word, and My Name is Thanos. All great song titles, but the songs are just boring. So again, with the flow, it's got a strong opening, good intro track and a good, great song, track 2, Area 64 through 66. A good chunk of these EMMURE albums, they have like an intro track, and then it's supposed to lead into like a super heavy track 2. So this album did that well. And much like Eternal Enemies, though, actually no, this one's different. It opened strong. It was more consistent throughout, but the closing was weak. The last 3 tracks, it just got boring. And again, there's too many short tracks. It's slightly disjointed throughout, but the good tracks help give it like a 7.8 out of 10. Out of the 15 tracks, I'd say 8 of them are good, and then the other 7 are either decent or like filler. So, number 6, we have Felony from 2009. This album is, again, another kind of... I got into EMMURE around 2010, 2011. So these were some of like the first, not full albums I was listening to. I had access to them, but I never fully listened to them again until recently. I Thought You Met Casper and Turned Me Into Telly, whatever that song is called. I was like, what the hell is this music video? But again, even that guilty pleasure kind of crept into me back then. Again, 2009, 12 tracks, 32 minutes. I gave this album an 8 out of 10. This is kind of where we start to get to those three-way ties, or where I started to have a slightly challenging time ranking albums, but I ultimately ended up being able to do it. This album is the mid version. It's kind of like the midway point between like their old deathcore style of like the first 2 albums. This is their 3rd album. And then their modern breakdown sound that you kind of heard from like Speaker of the Dead up until I guess recent. It's raw, it has good variety, but to me it just isn't the most fleshed out sound. Like, it's more consistent than the other previous 2 albums. And again, the one single, I think it's one single off this album, I'm probably the remember where that whole meme came from? The I Thought You Turned Me into whatever it's called, Casper and Telly song. It's catchy as hell. It's got good breakdowns. It's got good flows. The album's consistent enough for me to give it an 8 out of 10. My favorite tracks are the Telly Casper song. The title track, Felony, is catchy as hell. It's got good guitar riffs. And then, didn't mean to ruin your reputation. Like, it's catchy. I like it. And then, I've always liked the song Bars in Astoria. I listened to it when I was in Astoria that one time. And then new EMMURE song that I really like, Lessons from Nicole. So, number 6, Felony, 2009, gets an 8 out of 10. Number 5, Slave to the Game, 2012, 12 tracks, 32 minutes, just like the album before. This is a sentimental album for me, and I briefly talked to Frankie one time on Twitter. He said this is his least favorite album. I I don't know why, but it's his work. He can value it how he so pleases. Again, this is a sentimental one to me, and even though this is number 5 on the list, this is probably their most consistent probably their most consistent album. To me, this is a more consistent and complete version of their previous album, Speaker of the Dead. Again, it's 12 tracks, 10 of them are full songs, the other 2 are transitions or intros, but like there's no like dips really. It's got strong singles like Proto Man and MDMA. MDMA was a bit of a game changer. I didn't like that song at first, but now it's one of my favorite songs. My favorite tracks are I Am Onslaught, Crossover, Attack, MDMA, and the final track, AI. So it opens and closes on a strong note, and everything in the middle, really no dips at all. If I had to nitpick and say what the worst track is, I'd probably say Black Heart Reigns. I used to hate that song, but upon re-listening to it, I'm like, it's actually not a terrible song at all. So, again, just nitpicking. What puts this album higher up is, again, nearly flawless flow. Even with the transition tracks, there's really no filler. The mixing is great. Joey Sturgis did a great job with the low end, with the bass, like the bass tones in songs like Umar Dumps, whatever it's called, track 8, I think. The bass tones on that and on AI really remind me of like Korn. It's got a great mix of the heavy and the melodic sound. And again, the only reason why it isn't higher up on the list is because the peaks, like the top tracks, they're not among my favorite EMMURE songs. So it's a very solid B album with really no weak tracks, but it's not like my go-to EMMURE album if I want to listen to something to get me amped up. But it is their best like complete album from start to finish probably. Number 4, The Respect Issue, 2008, album number 2. 10 tracks, 29 minutes. I mentioned that just so you guys understand why I give albums certain ratings. To me, the amount of content is important, of course, second, and then primarily the quality of the content. But the amount, the quantity, is very important to me. So the Respect Issue, I'm surprised I put it this high, but this is the album that I really did a 180 on. This was one of my first experiences with EMMURE. This is like the odd album that like my buddy had, and like I put it on my iPod, and it just initially the first impression was bad. I thought Frankie Palmieri's voice was trash. This was a very bad first impression for me. I thought the weird talking rap thing with his overly saturated high vocals just didn't do it for me at all. And the only song I originally kept off this album on my iPod back in like 2011 was Dry Ice, which is the instrumental. But the music video, which I recently listened to and watched, False Love in Real Life, just like with Black Label Society and a couple of other bands, the right music video reinvigorated my love and reopened my mind to the band and to the album. So this album has 2 singles, Soundwave Superior and False Love in Real Life. Those are 2 great singles. I think False Love is a much better single, but there's no bad singles. Tracks 4 through 7, that's like basically the core of the album, is what really makes this album go high up. Chicago's Finest, Tales from the Berg, like songs like that, like holy shit. Wait, where's it at? And Rough Justice. Yeah, those are just some like ugly, like drop A sharp songs. And then of course False Love in Real Life is a great catchy single. And of course the album opens and closes strong, so really no weak tracks. I mean, Dry Ice is a weird dip, but it's not a deep enough dip to rank it lower. I like that song, and this album has got an 8 out of 10. Did a 180 on this album. I like the Respect Issue a lot. From start to finish, like I fucking love listening to it. Number 3, Look at Yourself, 2017. 13 tracks, 32 minutes. First album where basically Frankie's the only original member of EMMURE. They had to reinvent the band, and he brought Joshua Travis in, who's an excellent guitar player from... nobody hates him. Like, he did great with Glass Cloud, Tony Danza, Tap Dance Extravaganza. God, this guy is fucking a great, fun guitar player, and if you thought that A sharp in their earlier work or drop A or drop G wasn't low enough, he comes in and drops it even fucking lower. Look at Yourself. When it was out in 2017, I was just all over it, listening to it from start to finish all the time. They basically he had to make a statement and say, I'm not going anywhere, Frankie Palmieri. The intro and the following track, the Shinjigumi Master Lord, whatever it's called, those are excellent statement songs that say that EMMURE is here to stay. And then basically throughout the entire album, it doesn't really dip at all. Smokey is a phenomenal single. It's only 2 minutes, but it's like the best short and sweet song ever. It does everything right that the prior albums couldn't do with boring short songs. And again, it closes with like two of my favorite tracks. Derelict being my favorite like transition track, and then Gucci Prison. The like two excellent tracks to end the album. I ultimately gave this one an 8.1 out of 10. Great comeback album. Number 2, Goodbye to the Gallows, 2007. So I'm super grateful that a classic EMMURE album, or like the opening LP that they put out, the initial LP that they put out, is actually this high up. I was really hoping that one of EMMURE's top 3 albums would make it like to number 1 or number 2. I didn't want to just be a new EMMURE fanboy. I wanted to be able to appreciate their early work. And I genuinely, from start to finish, I think Goodbye to Gallows is... This album almost made it to number 1. It was super close. It's got probably the most brutal intro. At least probably the second best brutal intro. The closing track is epic. The amount of variety in there is really good. And I talk about variety because when most people think of EMMURE, they think of zeros and ones on the guitar. But there's good guitar work, especially on this album. To me, the only dip is Travis Bickle, which is a transition track. But oddly, it fits the flow of the album. So that's just if I'm nitpicking. 10 tracks, but 5 tracks that I love. Like, I gave these like high marks. When Keeping It Real Goes Wrong, Rusted Over Wet Dreams, the Henna Tattoo, Sleeping Princess, and Something Castle, and then the closing track, Everything Goes Wrong, da-da-da-da. I'm kind of shortening the names. The vocals on this album are raw, they're powerful. There's more diverse guitar work. Still super heavy, though. Just because they're playing an A sharp and not playing even lower doesn't mean that the brutality isn't there. Again, this album was very close to being number 1. Again, I never had to do a 180 on this album, but I just never fully got into it. But Goodbye to the Gallows is an excellent album. It was an excellent snapshot of the time of like MySpace deathcore, all those bands like Suicide Silence, Whitechapel, Bring Me the Horizon before they got all seen and everything. Like this is an excellent album to add to that mix of playlists and that again that time. All right, number 1, the reason why we're here, fucking Hindsight. Oh my god, the album that came out this year, and only by 1 point, or by 0.1. Goodbye to the Gallows got an 8.2 out of 10. Hindsight got an 8.3 out of 10. And fucking the guy from Rocked gave this album a 3 out of 10. Like, quit taking EMMURE so seriously. Obviously, it's your opinion, but you got to kind of have to go into this with like an open mind to understand why this album is actually fucking great. EMMURE is a very fun band to listen to, and they really fleshed out those ideas on this album. They took what they did on Look at Yourself, and they made it even better. The chemistry between Frankie and Joshua Travis is even better now, and the amount of catchy lyrics, like that's what really got me for this album. There's more hooks on this album, like not just with the guitar and the music and the samples or the synths, but like the actual lyrics are memorable. Like maybe they might not be super deep, like a Led Zeppelin song or something, but like they're catchy, and to me, hooks are important. So yeah, some of EMMURE's best tracks they've ever put out are on this album. The singles, I can't complain; they're super solid. My only complaint about this album is it's too short. Some of the best tracks on this album, they end too short, but I don't know. There are a few tracks that I wish, what would have happened if they added another minute to it, like Action 52 or Uncontrollable Descent. This album brings in more of like the rapping, and it actually sounds good. It sounds more like ballsy than he tried to do like in Eternal Enemies. The new metal sound of the guitars and the drums are really in there with, the rhythmic style of rhythm guitar playing, and then the drums, the hip-hop sounding style of drums. It's present in songs like Gypsy Disco, Thundermouth. And again, it's more about personal preference. Because of what I like, I'm able to put this album higher up than like Goodbye to the Gallows or Respect Issue. They just took the right amount of outside influence and injected it into this album. Gypsy Disco, Thundermouth, Action 52, Uncontrollable Descent, those tracks are what elevate this one to the top. And just like with Trivium, album number 8 is what reinvigorated my love for the band and made me want to go back and re-listen to all the albums, and it tops their discography with their latest release. Let me know what you guys think. Hindsight's number 1, but even with a band like EMMURE, if you think that it's just overly simplistic and repetitive, and at times it is, just take the top tracks off of all their albums, of all 8 of their albums, make a playlist out of it, and you're going to have yourself a very solid fucking band that's fun to work out to. The singer is an awesome guy, and the music is just fun. Like, we don't have to take it all too seriously at times, but like, if that's like his expression and that's what makes him happy, then if this is what we're getting out of it, then EMMURE, this is one of the reasons why EMMURE is one of my favorite modern day bands, and why they have influence on my band Raptor Riot. So I did it. Barely 22 minutes, not as long, but I'll do more of these ranked videos. Thank you guys for listening. And again, comment what your favorite albums or songs are, why you agree with my ranking, why you would rank certain albums higher or lower, and make it a good day.